Are you ready?
There's only 1 week left until the NFL draft. If you've been following me for a bit, you know Jason Gold. You know that we've covered this is going to be year 3, actually, doing draft content together, which is absolutely crazy. You haven't been on in a while. How's it going?
Everything's going great. Excited for the draft. This is my favorite time of the NFL season. Power rankings for favorite weeks of the NFL season is this Super Bowl, NFL Week 1. So this is right up there. Can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, and this is the time of the year too where it starts to get a little crazy. Like the things that are coming out, it's hard to follow. You have to read the tea leaves. How knees, like, are you like knees deep into this? Like we're talking a lot of units. You fired off a shitload of bets already.
I have a lot of bets already, waiting to get down more. Going out to Vegas next weekend to get even more action down. Most of the bets that I've made thus far, I think, have been more on the long shot side, trying to get that value. Now we're kind of in the period where the bets are a little bit more secure. You kind of know the range of players. You kind of know what teams are going to target. Obviously, there's weird stuff that's going to happen on draft day, but this will be more of the larger size unit on stuff that I feel more confident about.
Yeah, in the NFL draft, I was talking about this earlier. Someone like you could take the juice on a lot of this stuff. Like if you feel confident in stuff, it's not the same as betting in the season. Like if your bankroll can afford you taking like a -300, -200, like it's not the end of the world because it's totally different than, your standard week of football betting. I want to talk to you because we haven't gotten a chance to talk just right out of the gate. Top 5, like talking about this 1, 2, 3. I think that the draft starts at 3. Do you have a difference in opinion than like the general public as far as Jaden Daniels versus Drake May for the 2nd overall pick?
I'll answer this in 2 parts. So obviously Caleb's going 1.
Yeah.
I have put a lot of money already early on in the process on Jaden Daniels to go 2. I have a couple of plus money figures out there. So at this point, for myself personally, I'm looking to see, is there a hedge opportunity? Obviously, the number keeps going up and up and up on Jaden Daniels, but there's no real concrete information right now. So I would say that I'm looking towards playing Drake May. There may be some value in there just to cover my butt on some of this. I don't believe that it's JJ, but I did put in a massive bet on like $50 at like plus 1,800 for him to be the number 2 pick just to save my butt there.
Yeah.
In terms of difference from the public, I think that saying that the draft starts at 3 is probably pretty fair given the information that we have right now. If you have not placed a bet on number 2 right now, I would say there's probably more value on playing Drake May, but I wouldn't necessarily say to do it yet. I just don't think that the Commanders have said anything that's noteworthy other than today they said they're comfortable sitting at 2. They're not going to trade. I'm not 100% sure who it's going to be. I think it's like 65% Daniels, 34% May, and 1% JJ.
Yeah.
Where do you sit?
I think trades, like talking about trades and big players that can move up. I am not under the impression by any means that the Vikings are not trading up. Like, I actually think that's kind of a ridiculous take, only because of 2 things. One, they went out, actually 3 things. They went out, got the extra first. Sam Darnold is their quarterback. They have a superstar, best wide receiver in the league that needs to still get paid and needs to stay happy. And sorry, Vikings fans, I love him, but Kwesi is a shit fuck drafter. Like he cannot be trusted with 2 first-round picks. I think it's safer for them, and I think like the management and owners know that too. Like I think they need to move up and get their guy. It's much safer.
It seems like their guy is Drake May, and with the fallback option of JJ McCarthy. I know that Daniels is meeting with him this week. He may be a schematic fit. I don't anticipate that he's going to be there. So I'm kind of bypassing that option. I have to assume that they're on the phone with New England and seeing if they can get to 3. I don't think that New England's going to entertain it at the end of the day, just because I think if it were up to Elliott Wolf, they would seriously consider this. but this is a Robert Kraft, Jonathan Kraft decision to get a young
Yeah.
quarterback in the door.
Yeah.
If you want to know who's going to draft a quarterback, you always look at ownership. And I think that Drake May if he's there at 3, is going to be their pick. So,
Okay.
the Vikings may want to get up that high. I just don't think they're going to be able to. And then the conversation is, how much do they want to give up for JJ McCarthy? And I think the answer is there's no reason to do it at 4. I think that they have more assets than anyone else. So they can go to Arizona and charge go, if you have an offer on the table, we'll beat it. But
Okay.
they don't have to go out of their way to jump up just yet. Arizona's in an interesting case. They could do the trade down to 4, trade back up to 5 situation. They could do 4 to 6 if the Giants are going to be involved. Well, I'm sure we're going to talk about that in a second. But in terms of Minnesota, I think that they're hoping that if they can't get to May, they're hoping Arizona just takes Harrison. They'll do it with the Chargers. The Chargers will take 11-23 and some sort of other 2025 asset, and they'll take JJ and be happy. I think that's the best case scenario for the Vikings. That's how I have my mock draft right now playing out. I think that's a pretty realistic scenario.
So right now, the Chargers to draft an O lineman. I got a better number on this, but it's minus 175 right now. Wide receivers plus 200. If they trade back, what do you think they do there at 11? Take a wide receiver?
No, I don't think any wide receiver is going to be there at 11. And we'll talk about that. I have some long shots in there that I think that there's value in drafting or picking the wide receivers to go 7 and 8 overall. I think someone will trade up into that spot. We'll talk about that in a second. But at 11, I think it comes down to they really, really like JC Latham. And I think that's a very likely position that he would get taken in. I guess there's a chance, given Daniel Jeremiah was talking about how high Byron Murphy is jumping up the board, that Murphy could be the pick at potentially 8 at Atlanta, but maybe the Chargers would go that direction at 11 and then get an offensive lineman at 23. The way that I have it playing out is I have Latham at 11, and then at 23, I have them drafting actually a player who falls in my mock draft, Terrion Arnold at 23. I think
how does DraftKings, sorry, not to interrupt you, grade these out if it's for the first round? Like if you
it's your first pick.
Okay. All right. Duh. That makes way more sense. Okay.
So offensive lineman being number 1 on the board there, minus 170. I think that's probably likely. If they're forced, let's say, for example, at 4, Arizona decides to trade out and they don't want to trade back up for Harrison. They want to trade with Tennessee or Atlanta to get Neighbors or Odunze later. They're comfortable with that. So the Chargers are kind of forced in this position to pick at 5. I think it's probably likely in that scenario that they would draft a wide receiver over an offensive lineman. I do not think that Joe Alt under any scenario makes sense there. He is a left tackle. He is not a right tackle. They already have their left tackle, Rashawn Slater. I think that they would go wide receiver and take Harrison likely there. So that's a scenario for playing the plus 200 wide receiver. But otherwise, I think it's an offensive lineman.
Okay. And then so quarterback, I've been asking this for the last couple of weeks. So the quarterbacks to be drafted is at 4.5 right now. It makes me sick that either of the other guys are going to go in the first round, but it's not going to, I don't think, knock on wood, actually, that it's going to be my team. So that's 5. That's not really my problem. Are you under the impression that at least 5 go?
I'm leaning that direction, but I have not played it either way. At this point, given the line movement and kind of the news coming out, I don't think that Bo Nix, unfortunately, as much as I love my Oregon guy, I don't think he's going to be a first-round pick. And I don't think there's probably value in playing other teams other than the Broncos to draft him unless the Broncos trade down from 12.
I think so, too.
And I'm not sure what team that would be. If the Giants pass, maybe Giants in the second round makes some sense. There's some other teams at the top that could make sense in round 2. But I don't think Bo Nix will be a first-round pick.
I was just listening to a mock draft with Rick Spielman, and they had Bo Nix going to the Giants at 40. It wasn't 47. They might have traded up, but it was at some point in the second round.
That makes a lot of sense to me. As a team that could have a need, who could take wide receiver in the first round. I think that would be interesting.
You can get Michael plus 800 on it too, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, that's worth probably a flyer. Penix Jr. is the one that's really interesting. The amount of steam that he's gotten in markets and just across newsmakers
Yeah.
over the last 2 or 3 weeks has been substantial. Obviously, there's been pushback from different areas of the Twitterverse, but seems likely to me that some team's going to want to trade up into the end of round one to scoop him
Yeah.
up. Is that the Raiders? Obviously, that's the team that seems like they're head over heels with him. They obviously need a quarterback. So that's pretty interesting to me. I think that you'll know pretty early on. Like if the Raiders decide to trade back from 13, I think that Penix is definitely in play there. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them. They're picking 44 in round
Yeah.
two. I could see them going up to like 31 with San Francisco to get Penix to get that 5th-year option. I think that's definitely in play. So I would lean towards the over 4.5, but I wouldn't be shocked if both fell to round two.
Yeah, it's probably in play too for the Broncos, no? Like, don't you think that there is still a chance, if because I think Bo Nix definitely is like it very much suits Peyton very well. But I think either of
Yeah.
those teams to get that 5th-year option could jump in, even if they don't find them to be first round grades. And I think even like right now, Michael Penix to go in the first round is minus 145. Like I'm fine with taking that, I think. And then Bo Nix is plus 180. It's not as sexy as I don't know. I would need a little bit more, I think, to take the Bo Nix one.
Yeah, Penix, I bet it even to go in the
Okay.
first round. I'm still not like the biggest believer in that it's 100% going to happen, but it was worth a
I
flyer
know.
at that number because obviously we were going to get movement there.
Yeah.
I don't think like Denver trading down from 12 and accumulating other assets to get Knicks at the end of round one is the only scenario in which I see Knicks going in round one. But
Interesting.
Denver doesn't have, if Denver picks at 12, they don't have a second round pick. I don't think they're going to mortgage future assets to get Bo Nix at the end of round one. So you'll probably know after the 12th pick what their plan is.
Yeah, I see Capwise in here saying, please ask Jason what the Broncos, it must be Ben, Broncos are doing in his professional opinion, Sutton trade. Is Sutton one of the guys that could be on the move? I think that Ayuk is the big name right now to be potentially on the move.
Yeah, Ayuk is interesting. I don't think he's going to get dealt because San Francisco basically has this window with Purdy getting paid nothing that they should go all in, and Ayuk should get the extension. T. Higgins, to me, maybe a little bit more on the market given where Burrow's contract is at, and the fact that they're picking 18th. You're in kind of that range to get A.D. Mitchell or Brian Thomas Jr. That one's pretty interesting to me, although it seems like Higgins thinks that he's playing in Cincinnati this year. Cortland Sutton, the best follow on Twitter for this is Benjamin Albright, who covers the Broncos. He's very, very locked in. He seemed to suggest that there could be a deal for Sutton at some point, but are the Broncos really in a position where they're giving up some of their best players at this point? Like that roster otherwise is pretty barren. They don't have a quarterback. I don't see them unless it's a massive trade up where they're trading Surtain and Sutton and their first to go get one of the quarterbacks. I don't think that that's really likely, but I guess anything with Sean Payton really wouldn't surprise me at this point.
There's some really, really gross receiver rooms coming into next year as of right now. Like there's at least 5 like concerningly disgusting wide receiver rooms. Let's just talk about some of the best bets. Give me one of your top best bets. That's what the people want to hear anyways, and then we can let it go from there.
All right. So I would say the market that I'm playing the most that I still think is wrong is for either Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze to be drafted 7th overall and 8th overall. I don't think there's a scenario in which any of the 3 wide receivers, for that matter, end up dropping to Chicago at 9. I think teams are going to be motivated to jump above them. I still think there's a chance, even if Tennessee sits at 7, everybody wants to give them Joe Alt. I get it, but the last time Brian Callahan was in this seat was Jamar Chase versus Penei Sewell, and he fought for them to get Jamar Chase when he was with the Bengals because he likes guys, in his words, who score touchdowns. So my heavy belief is that one of those 2 guys is going to be drafted at 7th overall or 8th overall. Those markets are still really long. I would still play those. Rome is under 8.5 minus 160. I love that too. I just do not think anyone is going to let them drop to Chicago. If it's the Jets who trade up from 10, there's other teams that could do a massive trade up, like the Bills. Potentially, Peter Schrager talked about how much the Rams, everyone was mocking Byron Murphy to them and other defensive linemen. They're going to go offense in round one. I could see the Rams just going fuck it. We're giving our first round pick this year and next year to move up to 8 to go get Neighbors or Odunze.
Yeah.
So I think there's teams that can make a big jump up above Chicago. That's probably my favorite bet and where the most amount of money I'm going to put in the market, at least right now on something longer.
It leads into one of my like favorite markets right now, and it's that 8 spot with Atlanta. I think it's a little overdone that everyone thinks that they're going to take an edge. I actually think that there is a very good chance they take a cornerback. And if they do take an edge, I don't think it's going to be Dallas Turner. I think it's going to be either Latu or, I mean, I don't know if I see anyone else going there, but they have the connection there with the defensive coordinator. Dallas Turner over 9.5 for
Love
his
it.
draft position, minus 105 might be my favorite bet at the moment. That changes day to day, obviously. But I think for Atlanta to, draft back and end up going cornerback, if you want to get really crazy, specifically Kenyon Mitchell, I like that there. It's a little bit more of a longer shot, but I think that Dallas Turner over 9.5 minus 105. There's been concerns with him. Even if the Bears stay put, they've made it clear that Jared Verse would be the guy that they probably end up going if they do go edge, which I personally, if I'm the Bears, I probably take edge. If I'm still there, I'm going edge. I'm not really thinking about it. I think you get someone alongside Montez Sweat there. But yeah, that Dallas Turner over 9.5 at minus 105 is beautiful.
I totally love that bet. I think you're spot on with the Atlanta side where they could go Latu, Quinyon Mitchell, Terry and Arnold, even Byron Murphy in that spot could make sense for them. I also think it's a great trade back spot. Obviously, I just talked about wide receiver. Even if, like, let's say in a crazy scenario, JJ McCarthy drops, like a team trading up to 8 for him could be a spot.
Right.
There's way more outs there. I do think that Jared Verse would be the guy if they go edge at 9 for Chicago. I also think that Chicago may just be, let's give Caleb Williams all the assets in the world. So all the wide receivers are gone, but let's get Olu Fushanu. Let's get Joe Alt if he's there. Let's get Brock Bowers if he's there.
I was just about to say, is it Brock Bowers? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really buying the Brock Bowers in the top 10.
I think it's smoke. I think they're trying to do it's a really piss poor smoke screen is what it is, like late towards the draft with having him come in.
Where do you think the Bowers goes? I was having a tough time in my mock trying to figure out exactly where he was going to go.
Yeah, that is one of my other favorite markets is I love that everyone wants Brock Bowers to go to the gym. And I hear you because it's fun and Aaron Rodgers is there and whatever. First of all, when you think of Aaron Rodgers, name me 2 tight ends that right immediately you have 10 seconds. Name me 2, not you, because I know you could do it, but name me 2 tight ends. You can't because that's not what you think of right away. You kind of mortgage your future here to get Aaron Rodgers. He's coming back from an injury. You take O-line. Like you have to look at life after Aaron Rodgers too. And I think that's the big piece of it, where he's 41 years old. He's not your franchise guy. This is kind of like a risk it all move. And then at some point you're going to have to move on. And at that point, you're going to have to keep the next guy upright. And you've struggled with O-line for so long that I don't see in any world that, I mean, if they're smart, which the Jets are not, but I still think for their first position drafted plus 120 for O-line makes so much sense. I know that's not answering Brock Bowers, but like I think Brock Bowers could end up being, I know everyone thinks he's a top 10 pick. I don't know. I could see him falling out of the top 10 quite easily, actually.
His over-under right now is either 11.5 or 12.5, depending on where you're
12,
looking.
I think.
Yeah, the over was juiced at 11.5. I think it was like minus 190. So I'm not really expecting him to be a top 10 pick. I do think if the Jets kind of want to go all in, offensively around Rodgers with weapons, it's not Bowers at 10. It's trading up to 7 or 8 to get one of the wide receivers. Actually, I kind of like that personally. Getting Odunze and Wilson together for Aaron Rodgers makes a lot more sense to me than trying to bring along a rookie tight end. You traditionally don't see rookie tight ends have huge breakout seasons. I know that Laporta is a little bit of an outlier there, but you throw Odunze or Neighbors in there, now you're cooking with gas. So I do think they probably end up with O-line. If they stick there, I could see a trade back. But if it's a trade up, I think it's wide receiver for sure. I had Bowers at 15 to the Colts. I
Yeah,
think that makes
that's my
sense.
favorite. I'm sitting on a plus 700, so I freaking hope you're right.
I don't think he gets past 18 to the Bengals. I could see the
Yeah,
Broncos doing it at 12. I don't know what team necessarily would trade up to try and get Brock Bowers. That's kind of like the hard part.
seems
I'm just not
interesting.
100% sold on exactly where he's going to go.
Yeah, his position's gonna be very much how the board falls. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
For Jets O line though, there is
mhm.
still value on those guys. Do you think it would be Fuaga or Fatanu? Because I like Fuaga better there, but I know that that's not the popular take. They're the same value, but
Yeah, it depends on. I have to assume that the Jets are drafting for this year. So you need someone who's versatile.
yeah.
So Patanu is kind of the guy who can play all five positions potentially instead of Fuaga. So I would probably lean towards that. There is a weird scenario in which, let's say, that a team jumps into Tennessee and Tennessee slips to let's say that the Chargers trade to 11 and then they trade back up to 7 for a wide receiver. So
Okay.
Alt's off the board. Do the Jets take Alt at 10 or would they go for Fatanu? I think there's a chance that they go for Fatanu there. And first offensive lineman off the board, he's still like plus 800, plus 900.
Yeah.
I know it's a slim scenario. I'm not 100% sold that Alt's going to be the first offensive lineman off the board. There's probably a lot of value if you can get that exact order right, like 1, 2, and 3 off the board.
There probably is. And I think we've seen crazier things happen, especially at the O line position. Because even the year that Andrew Thomas went, like
That's
no one,
exactly what I was just going to bring up. I had a massive Andrew Thomas, like plus 800 ticket that
yeah.
everybody
I
thought
feel
that they
like
were
it's
going a
going to be
different
very much,
direction.
I just got chills. Like, I feel like it could be very much like a scenario like that, right?
Absolutely. That was a great year where I think the information came out like that morning that Andrew Thomas was the pick that the Giants wanted.
Yeah,
And Marcus
Gettleman
hadn't
doesn't know how to
adjusted.
shut the fuck up.
I miss the guy. I miss him so much. It was great betting on him.
It was.
Um, I do think there's a scenario in which that plays out where Joe Alt falls a little bit further than everybody thought.
Yeah. I saw an interesting matchup before I get another one of your bets here, because you were talking about Odunze and Neighbors a little bit. Their matchup, do you think there's any world that Rome goes ahead at Neighbors?
Yeah, I do. I
Like,
think it's
plus
one.
265 is like kind of enticing.
There's a very specific scenario involving your Giants
Yeah.
where I think that if Marvin Harrison is off the board, which he should be by 6, that the Giants prefer to get a true X receiver in Udunze versus getting Neighbors, given the way that their offense is and the other playmakers that they have. So yeah, I think that there's a real chance that Rome goes 6 and then Neighbors goes 7 or 8. I think that's totally in play. Now, would I bet on it? I don't know, but it's worth monitoring. Like if there's
Yeah.
more mock drafts that kind of start skewing that way from sharp guys,
Yeah.
I think it's playable for sure.
Yeah. I think if this moved a little bit more, I probably could get on the Rome side. What's another bet that you're looking at?
Let's see. Let's see the one. Oh, all right. This is one that I made yesterday. It's heavily juiced, but I still think the number's great. 80 Mitchell under 28.5. It's minus 190. There's no chance he gets past the Bills at 28 in my mind. And I think that they're like my latest mock draft. I had Buffalo trading up to 22 to get Brian Thomas Jr., and I had 80 Mitchell going 19 to the Rams. So I definitely think that there's a scenario in which Mitchell goes a lot earlier than people expect. Adam Schefter mentioned that. I just don't think that he's going to get past 28 in Buffalo, so I'd play that number for sure.
Yeah, I am definitely with you on that. What about Brian Thomas Jr.? He's at 17 and a half. The under is plus 105.
So I'm going to run through scenarios here on this one.
Okay.
I think the earliest that he can get picked, unless, okay, we have to preface all of this with crazy shit can happen. It's the NFL draft.
Right.
But I think the likely scenario is he could go 17 to Indianapolis. He could, or 15 to Indianapolis. He can go 17 to Jacksonville.
I think, yeah.
I think those are the only 2 teams that would take him above there. And I think there's a lot of teams that could take him below. So I would probably play the over 17 and a half gun to head. I have not made a bet on that yet. You kind of have to figure out how the rest of the board's going to fall. But in terms of like teams that love athletic profiles and Brian Thomas Jr. fitting that, 15 and 17 make a ton of sense. If you are locked into one of those positions, I get playing the under. It's just not a side that I want to take right now.
Yeah. Another bet that you're looking at.
I think the over 9.5 offensive lineman round one. Talk about juice numbers that we were saying before.
Yeah.
I think that's easily going to hit. I think it's going to be 10 at least, maybe 11. I think wide receivers at the end of round one are probably going to get squeezed out into round two. Same with the cornerbacks. I think the offensive linemen are the ones that are going to go early.
Mhm.
So yeah, over 9.5. I don't know what the number is out there on any individual book. The highest I saw was minus 200. I still think that's playable all day long. And by the same token,
Yeah, minus
another
200.
heavily juiced one, ACC players under 4.5 seems like an absolute screaming lock to me. I
Yeah.
played it minus 285. I think it's
Yeah.
minus 400. I would still play it. I don't know how you lose that unless Braden Fisk ends up being a first round pick, which I don't see. I think there's a chance that Nate Wiggins falls out of round one. It could just be end up being 3. So in terms of heavily juiced bets that I think are stone cold locks, I think it's that. And then you look at like round one picks, like Darius Robinson is minus 330 to be a first round pick at this point. That's a stone cold lock. Every pundit that you've talked about the last 5 days, 7
Right.
days, they all think he's a first round pick. They think he could be a top 20 pick. Don't think there's a chance he falls out of round one. Think there's a chance he can go earlier than that. Minus 330 for some guy who's definitely going to be a round one pick, unless, as long as he makes it to the draft. Those are the sorts of bets that you should be making on the NFL draft.
Right. Absolutely. Talking about some guys that are not potentially going to go in the first round. I'll start it off here with maybe being a little disloyal to my own alma mater. But I don't know if people remember when I was very obsessed. These are two different positions, but just stay with me. I was very obsessed with Travis Jones. I put a lot of money on him to go in the first round. This year, my Travis Jones is Jordan Morgan. I think he's going to slip out of the first round. I really do. I was watching him last night again, and his little arms, I got a bad feeling here.
I actually bet on Morgan to be a first round pick minus 140.
Okay.
Just because I think that the run on offensive lineman is going to happen, and he's one of the
Okay.
guys.
So
So
you think he'll benefit from that?
yeah, I think he's going to get pulled up the board with everybody else, just because he's an offensive lineman, and you're going to need to get those guys in round one. It's going to drop off really quickly after the top 12 guys. So
Yeah.
I think maybe you're talking about a guy like Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, maybe slipping out of the first round, Zach Frazier being there in early round 2, but all of the tackles I feel like are probably close to locks to be in the first round. But
Okay.
Morgan would probably be the tackle if we're talking about one that it's either him or Kingsley from BYU that I won't try to
Yeah.
pronounce his last name that are probably like the last tackles off the board.
Okay. What about a guy that you are looking at to slip out?
So I have it listed in 6 different categories of guys that I think are locks,
Okay.
probable, fringe, maybe long shots, and super long
Okay.
shots. So the guys that are in like my fringe and maybe, Johnny Newton from Illinois.
Really?
I think there's a chance he slips out of round one. I think
Okay.
the spots that he would be able to go in round one to me are 29 to Detroit and 31 to the 49ers.
Do you
Other
think
than
the
that,
Vikings would do it though at 23 for Flores?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
No. Well, I feel like we're pretty sure that the Vikings aren't going to have that
Yeah,
pick.
that's right. Yeah, that's fair. I'm getting cute in my own
If if
experience.
they if they did, I mean, I feel like no one knows what the Vikings would do if they sit and pick. It's complete crapshoot. So
You know what they'll do? They'll fuck it up. I promise you that much. If I could bet, I was saying this morning, if I could bet that the Vikings fuck up those 2 picks if they have them, I literally would. I don't care what the number is.
oh my god, yeah. I mean, I could see it. Their end of their drafts. I mean, Addison was a good pick, but otherwise they've been a little.
Name like 2 other Quasi picks because it's so bad.
I can't.
Really
it hasn't been great. They also trade all their picks to the Lions. So,
yeah.
the question on I talked about the 2 offensive linemen, Jackson Powers Johnson and Kingsley, whatever. They could maybe drop out. I mean, JPJ before was like minus 400, minus 600 would be a first round pick. Now he's like minus 140. It seems like that it might have been a little bit too strong on the fade of him. Sounds like probably end of round one. Again, those 2 teams that I talked about, Detroit and San Francisco, could be really appealing for him. I could also see Dallas drafting Jackson Powers Johnson at 24.
Yeah.
Um, Xavier Worthy's an interesting one that might drop out.
Yeah.
Just because if the wide receivers after AD Mitchell get pushed down the board, he might not make it. I know he's the fastest guy in the draft, but guys that run in the low 4.2s traditionally haven't been great in the NFL as
Yeah.
receivers.
Not a good track record. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him drop out. Um, I don't know if there's any other names on here. Like Nate Wiggins would be the other one. Like if corners end up getting squeezed out, could he be at the top of round 2? He's so light. We saw what happened with Emmanuel Forbes last year. He got drafted 16th, but he played like shit for Washington. Is the NFL going to go back to the well on a 170-pound cornerback? Not 100% sure. I think the Kansas City at 32 could be a spot for him, but otherwise, it's either like the Eagles or Kansas City, and otherwise, I don't really see a spot for him.
Yeah. What about some of these? I know Peter Schrager just put out his mock draft that really just struck the internet up there.
Yeah.
Do you think Polk or Troy Franklin have a chance to go in the first round? Because I'm not sold on that, but we see it every year where like sometimes you do get that guy that pops up in the like 32nd, whatever it is.
I would guarantee that there's some random name that gets into the first round that we're all like, what the hell? This wasn't even close to being on the board at any point in time. I'm not sure that position is going to be a wide receiver, just because I think the offensive linemen are going to get drafted ahead of the wide receivers. Wide receivers get pushed down a little bit. I am holding a Jalen Polk ticket at plus 1,400, I think, for a first round, just because Schrager won't stop talking about it. So I don't know if it's from a source or he just loves the guy, but I figured at 1,400, I might as well have a little taste of that.
That's crazy. You know what it is in DraftKings?
Like 400 maybe.
Plus 380.
Yeah.
That's
great. So I feel good about it for closing line value.
Cool.
I don't know that it's necessarily realistic at all. I'm trying to think, like Troy Franklin, obviously, I love Troy Franklin. He was awesome in Oregon last year, but he's light. He didn't test that well. Like his relative athletic score was kind of shit. So I'm not sure that I see that. A guy like Xavier Legette or Ladd McConkey could sneak into the end. I love Ladd McConkey. I think he could be like
good.
I think he could be like Cooper Kupp.
Fran guy if they were to deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I could totally see that. A guy like that could sneak in. I don't really have a guy that I'm thinking of. Like, I guess the one that's only mocked to one place and nowhere else that could sneak in would be Edgerrin Cooper, the linebacker from Texas A&M, to Dallas at 24. That's been a lot of smoke. They brought him in for a visit, but no other team in the first round seems like they're even remotely interested in him. So it would be a very Dallas thing to do, to just draft that guy at 24 because you don't know what else to do. But I guess that would be the guy that I would say maybe sneaks in who not everyone is thinking of.
Yeah.
The other one. Sorry, the last is the one that everyone's talking about that could sneak in. I guess is Marshawn Nealon. Everyone's been talking about him and trying to bring up his stock. I don't know if he sneaks in the first round, but I guess I wouldn't be surprised if he went 29, 30, 31, 32 at this point.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. What about my New York Giants?
Let's talk about it.
Let's do it. Joe Shane just did a little presser, and he was asked if they were taking a quarterback, and he basically said no again. He hasn't been saying no directly. This time he said no. But I think part of that is, and this is just me not being like psychotic, maybe it's being psychotic, but not as psychotic as everyone else. I just think he knows he's not going to be able to outbid. Like, I think he's aware of what's occurring ahead of him. So I think he knows, like, we're not going to try to outbid those guys. And we kind of know one of the wide receivers we want is falling to us.
Okay, so
that is my feeling on it.
I think, let's play out a couple scenarios here. Let's say that the Patriots decide they want JJ McCarthy at 3. I think that the Giants would change their tune really quickly and probably pay up to go to 4 with Arizona, and try to outbid everybody. I think from Arizona's perspective, it's probably, let's play this out. if Arizona has the opportunity to go from 4 to 6, and they love Neighbors at 6, and they know that they'll get him at 6, is that more interesting potentially than trading with 11 and 23 with Minnesota? Technically, you're getting more assets, but is it the right assets other than just dropping down 2 spots and still getting a wide receiver you love? So I don't know if the Giants necessarily would get outbid in that scenario. If it's JJ McCarthy at 4, I don't know that they're as interested in jumping from 6 to 4, but potentially, I mean, they did work on all of these guys. I guess I wouldn't be surprised by it. If I had to bet right now, I think that they go wide receiver.
Yeah.
But you know better than anyone. They've done work on all these guys for very good reasons. And I think they're legitimately thinking about the possibility of moving up and getting one of these guys.
Yeah, I think they won't. I feel pretty adamant that they're not going to move up to 3. But I think if like May were still there, they're definitely having a conversation and on the phone at like 4. Like if for some reason the Patriots were to take JJ at 3 because they watched way too much of their own docuseries, then like, yeah, I could see them maybe making a move. But I think they did the work for like, also if one of these guys falls to 6.
Yeah, I get that, but I don't know about you. I don't foresee any scenario that JJ McCarthy or any of these guys get past 5. The Chargers are too motivated to trade out seemingly. So I don't think anyone's going to go to 6.
Could there be any like surprise teams to try to get into the top 5? I don't think the Broncos have enough to do that.
I guess the Broncos definitely don't.
The Raiders are kind of sneaky.
The Raiders probably do, but I think the Raiders only would want to come up in order to get Jaden Daniels. Yeah. So I think the only scenario in which the Raiders would want to come up would be the Vikings. Yeah, let's say the Vikings don't want Daniels, and let's say that the Patriots don't want Daniels. Then if Drake May goes 2 and Jaden Daniels is there at 3, swapping 3 and 13 plus 2 first-round picks, maybe you could sell me on that. But I think that's the only way that Vegas probably gets up into the top 5. The other one is, you were talking about top 5 picks. Let's say the quarterbacks go 1 through 4, right? And Marvin Harrison's hanging out there at 5, and the Chargers don't want him. Is there a wide receiver team that wants to trade up? Is it Chicago or New York, or does Buffalo risk their entire future? Do the Rams come up for like? I think Joe Shane
would be aggressive at that point, and like I think he would try to get to 5 to get Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I mean, the Chargers in theory. The
Chargers don't have to do anything. Maybe some of this stuff is true where some teams do have Neighbors ahead of Marvin Harrison.
Let's say that in that scenario, quarterback go 1 through 4. The Giants want to get Marvin Harrison. The Chargers could double trade. They could go 5 to 6 and then 6 out if someone wants to come up and get Odunze or Neighbors. That's an interesting scenario that I haven't really thought about before. But anyways, to answer your point, yes, if there's a team to trade up to the top 5 that's a surprise, I think it's at 5 for Marvin Harrison.
It's not that I'm against getting a quarterback. I just would like a wide receiver, and I have convinced myself it's a wide receiver, and I'm going to the draft, and I don't think I can handle being in person and us drafting JJ McCarthy at 3. Like I will probably lose my shit.
The good news is that as long as you're filming yourself, you'll probably get a great meme out of it. So probably good for business if that happens.
That's really true. One thing I'm worried about at the draft is because even when we did the live show and we weren't in person, and if people look at their phones and there's like people around me that say stuff, I'm going to lose it. Like I need you guys to just let it happen as it goes.
You got to put in the headphones. I think you go full headphones or earplugs. I think I turn the phone off and just get completely surprised.
I'm doing it. I think that's what I need to do. Any other bets that you want to bring up or long shots?
Let's give a lot. All right. The Rams to draft a wide receiver first. I got plus 1,400. I'm sure that 1,400 because I did it right after the Schrager mock drop, or actually after his podcast the night before. Rams have taken offensive lineman or a wide receiver first. Those are both pretty interesting given the Schrager news and how close he is to McVay. I think those are interesting plays. Um, the other one that could potentially be interesting to me, there's been rumors that Jacksonville is really high on some offensive linemen. I know that the numbers suggest that they're going to go wide receiver or cornerback, and they should have guys in that range that would be of interest to them. But let's for sakes here, let's say plus 700 Jacksonville offensive lineman first round, and it would be a guy like J.C. Latham or Amarius Mims that kind of fit that athletic profile that Balky really likes.
Interesting. I think you just made me think of this. It's totally different direction I was gonna go. I think the Steelers are turning into a little bit of an interesting team only because I know that they need to go O-lineman, and I know that we've been talking about it, but like wide receiver is, I don't think, off the table. And I don't think cornerback is off the table either, because if the cornerbacks end up falling a little bit too, like I could see them taking one. It's at plus 600, so it's not like this is like a super long shot, but even wide receiver at plus 350, their room is not pretty right now. What is it? Pickens, Austin, and who? Who else is there?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bleak.
Bad.
The only question with me on the Steelers and doing a wide receiver, it would make sense. There's going to be two guys at least that would be of interest to them. Would the Steelers trade out of 20 and come down a little bit and draft a wide receiver a little bit later? That may make
Like
more sense to me.
Or like a Ricky P or something like that.
Yeah, but you'd still win that bet in that scenario. So that's kind of interest to me. I think there's a chance for the Steelers that they would go defensive lineman if Byron Murphy was there at 20.
Okay.
So
14-1. Now we're talking.
So I wouldn't say, what's the Steelers to draft O lineman? It's like minus 350.
Minus 330.
Yeah. So I would definitely fade that. Like my biggest position on a team to draft offensive lineman round one, I bet the Packers at minus 120. I think it's at 250. I think there's a good chance that the Packers trade up really high in this draft to get one of the top 4 offensive linemen. Like 12 with the Broncos makes a ton of sense. I would not be surprised to see that happen.
And I think that's something like even right now it's minus 250. Like you could still absolutely bet on that. Like that's not out of the realm that I wouldn't bet it at.
Yeah, I think that's probably the limit or close to it. But it seems like every single person that's anywhere near involved in Green Bay thinks that they're going to draft an offensive lineman. And just from my own perspective, I wouldn't be surprised to see a trade up. How many have you seen the market on how many trades in the first round? I think it's like 6.5. What do you think?
I was just that was how I was going to end the show. How did you know?
All right.
That's very funny. I put it on my post-it right before, so I would have asked you. Yeah, it's 6.5. The over is minus 125. The under is 105.
I think we're going to see a lot of trades here, a lot of action. Maybe that's just me being hopeful. 2 years ago, we had.
I know, but do we do this every year? Do we do?
Yeah,
this
but this
or is it like the Justin Fields year?
This is like the betting on a hole in one in a major. It's like, it's just fun. You have to do it.
Yeah.
I want to see action. I want to see trades. So 2022, there were 9. Last year, I think they were either 5 or 6. So I think that 6.5 number is probably fair. But given the action that you're going to see at the top in terms of trades, which we're likely going to see at least one top 5 pick get dealt here, I think it's going to have a ripple effect. And I think the guys are going to come up for the guys that they want. I wouldn't be surprised to see 7, 8 at least.
I like it. I also bet Mr. Irrelevant to be a running back at plus 850 because I just think everyone's been real negative about the running back. So I think it'd be funny if that's the last pick.
Do you have any bets or interest in betting the first running back market? Because I have no idea what to do with it.
I gave out Benson and then it flipped like probably a week after. I think is he the favorite now? He might still.
I think Jonathan Brooks is the favorite now.
Is he? I think I'm still gonna stick with the Benson thing. I just am gonna roll with it because I planted my flag.
The one running back bet that I made, I bet Blake Corum under 90.5, and that's just because the Chargers hold like the 73rd pick, and I'm fully convinced that Jim Harbaugh's going to draft Blake Corum in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love that. We should do a NFL draft prop draft at some point.
Oh,
time.
I love that.
Because that'll be fun. We'll have to set the odds at like it has to be like longer than a certain because we can't just take minus 330 on everything.
Yeah.
But That would
No,
be a lot of fun.
let's do it
Yeah.
where we can only take dogs. We can only take long shot
Yeah.
bets. No
Okay.
favorites.
I'm down. That sounds awesome. Any last bets before I let you get out of here? Because I kept you longer than I said I would.
Oh, yeah. Okay. This one's fun. Last one. Over 0.5 safeties round one. It's between plus 400 and plus 550. This bet is purely speculative based on the fact that I've heard some reporting that some NFL teams really like Cooper DeJean as a safety instead of a cornerback. So what if he gets called as a safety in round one? So no safeties actually jump up. It's just a name change for Cooper DeJean. I kind of like it. It's a little spicy.
I like it. I'm doing it. I'm rolling with it. I like it a lot. I could see Green Bay taking him. All right, I'll let you get out of here.
All right. Thanks, Smalls. Good talking to you.
See ya.
All right. Bye.
Hey.
I zoned out a little bit there. You're such an I forgot to say anything. How's it going?
I'm going well. It's going well. That was a good show. I pumped to get in some more bets. I have so much action going on.
Oh my gosh. I forgot to tell you. Well, I didn't tell anyone. Well, I bought, you know how quarterbacks wear like the play calls on their wrists? I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
I got one for the draft because I'm going to be there and I don't want to look at my phone. So I'm going to write my bets down and put it on my wrist so that I have.
Oh, you gotta take video of that. You gotta do a video short of that.
Because when I get in there, like especially the beginning of the draft, like I will not be taking my phone out of my pocket.
So I like it.
Will have that on my wrist.
I like it. I like it. That's a really good move that you're doing.
Very smart. Yeah. We got some questions or what?
Let's go with some questions. This one is from Straw Wheat of Far. Wait, of Far. Do you think
how? I think.
Yeah. Do you think Sweat from how far do you think Sweat from Texas actually falls? Devondre Sweat.
Yeah, I guess I'm not totally up to date on what his like recent got arrested thing. Well, you got a DUI, right?
Yeah.
So he'll probably be an Eagle or a Chief. I can tell you that much. I mean, what? We saw, who was it last year?
Can he fall to the end of the second?
I mean, it's pretty recent, but so did, who's the guy I'm blanking on right now? I don't have my Adderall. My Adderall script is late, so I'm a little head case right now. I can't think of it. Yeah, I think he could fall to the end of the second.
All right.
I think he could fall. I don't want to say out. That seems dramatic, but I think he could.
All right. Fall to the end of the second. This one from Bobby Spence at Post Crab Core. Is Cam Brown an actual Dolphin? I'm not even sure this.
If you want to know the state of Giants fans, like this is the state of Giants fans. Like this is how they are doing. Like they are asking if Cam Brown was a Giant. He just got signed by the Dolphins. I don't think he's an actual Dolphin. I think that we will hear as much about Cam Brown as we did on the Giants.
Okay. Final question from at Frank is my friend. Can you fold a fitted sheet yourself? This is a very important question. I want to see how your home making skills are.
Well, I feel like my homemaking. I mean, does anyone actually fold them?
Yes.
I kind of just like. I just kind of.
You ball it up.
No, I like kind of fold it, and then like at some point I don't believe anyone can actually fold it properly.
Okay, so you don't even try. You just kind of.
I like it's like there.
Yeah.
It's kind of folded.
I think that counts.
Does it? Do you know how? I'm also
no. Yeah. I don't fold anything hardly. So I don't know what I'm doing.
And I have like.
I'm just gonna throw it all in the closet.
Yeah, I have like favorite sheets. So if I'm watching my sheets, I'm usually not going for like my extra sheets. I want the sheets that I want to wash, and then I want to put them on the bed. So unless I have a guest coming over and I have to like clean the sheets and then fold them for like the next time, I just kind of.
There you go. I think that's a fair answer. Yeah. All right. When are we going to be back?
We're going to be back. So here's the dealio. We're going to skip golf next week because no one gives a fuck anyways.
All right.
And it's NFL draft week. I will be at the draft Thursday, Friday. That means no Friday show. So between probably Monday, Tuesday, we'll do 2 shows next week. They will just be NFL draft. I think draft prop bet, like we were just saying with Jason, that would be a lot of fun. And then let's try to get one more mock draft in before we go. My
All right.
final
So we'll be
mock.
back. We're not going to be back tomorrow. Will we be back early next week?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sounds
All right.
good.
See you guys.
Anything else? What
That's
else
it.
should people do?
People should like, subscribe, rate, review us, of course.
Of course.
Watch him make it, break it, break it, break it down.